was the first person to identify Schriever Air Force Base as the operations center for the directed energy weapons. The government agencies are involved. The latest GPS tracking satellite that was launched here in December, and one satellite can literally track everyone in North America. Everyone. Our planet now holds about 7.5, so it's very clear the direction they're going with this capability. They want to track everyone on the planet. When I mean everybody, I mean even the Air Force personnel, even the CIA personnel. They haven't told them that they're on the list to be tracked. That's what's so amazing about it. The Council on Foreign Relations, their people are getting hit and tracked, and they're completely unaware of it. Many congressmen and senators don't know about it. It's that classified. The main thing that they want, that the deep state wants, is control. They want control of your mind. So this entire system is set up so that they can send subliminal messages at your head 24 hours a day. That's the purpose of this tracking system. So they can track and hit people at an incredible rate. It's really an incredible feat of engineering. Unfortunately, they're using it for some really horrible things. The real reason the government or the deep state wants the 5G is because they can track and hit more people at the same time. With one of these new 5G antennas, you can track and hit thousands and thousands of people from a single antenna all at the same time, because it's got so much bandwidth, and it does what's called digital beamforming. And that's the real reason they want the 5G. Because the microwaves will be used to harm people. They are and they will be.
The total number of satellites that is expected to be put into low and high orbits by several companies will be 20,000 satellites. Now, you might remember Elon Musk. He's the guy that's been going on about, oh, artificial intelligence could be the end of humanity. And then, through his SpaceX company, he wants to put thousands of satellites up, he's planning to, doing so, to beam the very frequency and electromagnetic field at the Earth, which will allow artificial intelligence to take over the world, humanity. And he also opened a company called Neuralink to connect AI to the human brain. So this stuff is designed to create a sub-reality, electromagnetic, technologically generated sub-reality all around the Earth in the areas that humans operate, that is planned to interact with the human brain and the human body and dictate our thoughts and dictate our emotions. That's what it's about. And to make that happen, to make that work, they have to have the power of 5G. We better start looking here, because this has the capacity to be absolutely devastating for humanity, mentally, emotionally, and physically.
all of the natural environment is being weaponized. We need to understand that nanoparticle part of it, because that's crucial to how this human 2.0 is going to be created through the environment. The sensors, the trillions and trillions of sensors that have been released in near-Earth orbit, we are breathing them in, and they are settling on our skin, on the Earth, on everything. A lot of people now are talking about the fibers that they're finding in their homes, in the dust, but they're not just around us, right? They're inside us. They have a swarm consciousness. Yes, it's as though they're alive, and they are also engineered, then can be manipulated with radio waves and microwaves. The most important thing now that I understand is going to connect us with what is being delivered by the trails, jet and rocket and drone, and delivered and supported by GMO foods and piggybacked into incredible vaccine programs. It's also the nanotechnology that they are using in order to command and control the environment on a micro scale. And the 5G is now like the linchpin of an entire system. And the 5G piece will be communicating through the Internet of Things. Yes, that's true. But it will also have the capability of communicating with the nanoparticles inside our bodies and brains. And then there are the electromagnetic fields that are being created by all of the equipment we have around us, in our homes, in our neighborhoods, the satellites that are above us. My point is we're sandwiched between. And because we're resonant beings and we resonate easily to manipulation of frequencies around us, it is the environment that is being used to move us toward transhumanism. And this is the future. And the biological transhumanism includes turning us into a hive mind so that we have a collective thinking that is sort of eavesdropping on each other, but it's sort of the same thinking capability. Remote genetic engineering of the DNA, remote. And this is where 5G comes in. It's in us now. It's in everybody. What's going to be next as far as experimentation goes is starting to switch us on and off and download into us when we sleep, which is when we're most vulnerable. There's a lot more going on than we're being told. And so we need to really open our eyes and start taking care of ourselves in order to understand how these technologies work so that our intelligence does not fall under the 5G. I think it's time that we really looked at consciousness not as some lifestyle change, the lifestyle thing over here, but as the very core of our defense. Are you having thoughts that are not your typical thoughts? Are you having emotions that come out of nowhere and are not your emotions? Are you having dreams that seem manufactured? These are real questions now. These are not fantasies or science fiction. We are in that era, and the machinery, I can vouch for it. It's all set up now. Only by awakening can we harness the consciousness that goes unused in most people, because now we know it's all frequency. It's all frequency. And we can choose those frequencies, and we must choose them, because otherwise they will be intruding on us and we won't recognize it.
For the last few weeks, the world's focus has been on Venezuela as Trump pushes for regime change. Almost every media outlet paints the same picture, that Venezuela is a brutal dictatorship and a starving nation, one that demands intervention. From Iraq to Libya to Venezuela, what usually preempts U.S. military intervention is the pretext of a humanitarian crisis.
If you know a humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and in Yemen, and in Syria, and in Sudan, and in Somalia, you wouldn't say there is a humanitarian crisis in Venezuela. But I see human rights more and more being instrumentalized to destroy human rights. There is a weaponization of human rights. I see the rule of law being instrumentalized to destroy the rule of law. And unfortunately, the complicity of the mainstream media. The financial blockade has had extremely adverse human rights impacts. The United States has made sure that because of the threat of enormous penalties to the U.S. Treasury, the banks have been closing the accounts of the Venezuelan government. I am certain that the increase in child mortality, the increase in maternal mortality is a direct result of this blockage, so that Venezuela has not been able to purchase what its people deserve. It's not like the government doesn't want to distribute. Is that the government, through an external economic war, is being asphyxiated, and that was the name of the game. What the United States intended to do was to create a situation whereby the people or the military would topple the government, and then the 1% could again come in and could again control the wealth of Venezuela. Now, when you deliberately impose sanctions and financial blockades and an economic war that asphyxiates a country's economy and thereby make it very difficult for that country to provide the necessary food and medicines to its population, and as a consequence, thousands of people die, you have a case of crime against humanity. But the narrative in the mainstream press completely ignores it. We've been talking about fake news, about the ocean of lies that we read in the papers every day. But it's not just the lies that create the problem, it's the absence of information. When a whole dimension is suppressed and you do not hear anything about other points of view, sooner or later you accept the narrative that yes, there is a humanitarian crisis, ergo you need a humanitarian intervention, and if Maduro doesn't leave by his own free will, it'll be necessary to topple him.
The reality of a U.S. military attack and invasion of Venezuela is very real. The beat of war drums is deafening. We've now learned U.S. Special Forces have been sent to Puerto Rico, the usual staging ground for U.S. invasions. We know how far they're willing to go for big oil and the war machine. Potentially, millions of lives are at stake.
The potential of Venezuela, if done properly and with democracy, would be incredible. It was one of the richest companies, certainly, and now it's one of the poorest countries of the world.
Trump is a businessman representing the capitalist class in the U.S. And what they want to lay hold of is the enormous resources of Venezuela. Trump has absolutely no interest in the lives of the average person in Venezuela who's interested in business and in money and in maximizing profit. Of course, Trump or Pence or any U.S. official or any group of NATO generals has absolutely no right to speak on any matter regarding Venezuela's sovereignty. And every one of the actions they have taken are a complete violation of international law and of the UN Charter.
Juan Guaidó tiene poco o nada que ver en la política interna y externa de Venezuela. Juan Guaidó es simplemente el medio para un fin. Juan Guaidó, y esto hay que decirlo también para el público internacional, hace apenas pocos meses era un total desconocido en la política venezolana. Juan Guaidó, para que tengamos una idea, es diputado por un pequeño estado litoral de Venezuela, al lado de Caracas. Pero antes de eso, Juan Guaidó trató de ser gobernador de este pequeño estado y se presentó en primarias con un adversario de la misma oposición. Perdió en primarias. Hoy día se nos quiere presentar a Juan Guaidó como un líder nacional o como un líder incluso internacional y latinoamericano. Yo no sé si es títere del imperio. Lo que sí sé es que se trata de una de las mejores estructuraciones mediáticas y de marketing político que los Estados Unidos ha construido en los últimos tiempos.
And it's always the narrative of humanitarian crisis that's drummed up to generate popular support in the West for some kind of Western intervention. And this phrase is really at the heart of the deception that I think helped stimulate European support for the US coup attempt. It was just such an obvious coup attempt, and it wasn't shocking to me that the EU states went along with it, partly because they are in the EU, and the EU is basically set up to deprive all of these states of their independence and make them vassals of the United States. They were coerced into a scenario or allowed themselves to be brought into a scenario where Venezuela was facing the threat of a war that all of these EU states say they oppose. They oppose a Libya-style intervention. And so it's really, this is just a colossal failure of the EU, and it really reveals what the EU is and what kind of a mechanism it was set up to be. And it's to help recolonize the Middle East and Latin America on behalf of the US.
Dans le monde arabe, et je m'arrête là parce que le téléphone ne s'arrête pas. Merci. Alors. Moi, je te passe. It was the usual suspect, my wife.
How will you, Russia, how will you ensure the Assad regime stops threatening the region and stops committing atrocities against their own people?
Well, I think whatever I answer, you will write what you want, so do it.
This is our adoptive son.
Wenn es um LED-Licht geht, dann kann man beobachten, dass sogar der Mainstream in den letzten Monaten diverse Male vor den Gefahren des LED-Lichts gewarnt hat. Sie werden also versuchen, in ein paar Jahren, wenn die Gesundheitsschäden offensichtlich werden, ihre Hände in Unschuld zu waschen.
LED haben keinen Leuchtdraht, wie Halogen oder Glühbirnen. Das Licht kommt aus einem kleinen Computerchip. Auch in Fernsehern, Handys, Autoscheinwerfern und Fahrradlampen stecken heute LED. Das wirkt weiß und klar. Doch das Licht ist in Wirklichkeit nie weiß. Es ist immer eine Mischung aus farbigem Licht, das zusammen weiß wirkt. Am Farbspektrum erkennt man, die Sonne bildet jede Farbe gleichmäßig ab. Glühlampen haben mehr Rot, ungefährlich für unsere Augen. LED strahlen aber besonders viel Blau ab, für die Augen ein Risiko.
Darüber hinaus ist Blau ein sehr energiereiches Licht, was sehr tief in Gewebe als auch auf Moleküle einwirken kann.
LED bergen eine Gefahr. Denn blaues Licht gelangt nahezu ungefiltert in unser Auge. Auf der Netzhaut richtet es auf verschiedene Weise Schaden an. Es befeuert mit seiner Energie freie Radikale. Das löst eine Kettenreaktion aus. Es sterben mehr Sehzellen, als nachwachsen können. Die Sicht wird schlechter.
Die irreversiblen Schädigungen im System der Sehzellen sind dabei nicht die einzige Gefahr. Eine Studie von Forschern aus Barcelona hat gezeigt, dass Frauen, die häufig mit LED-Licht in Kontakt kommen, also zum Beispiel direkt neben einer LED-Straßenlaterne wohnen, ein 1,5-fach höheres Risiko für Brustkrebs entwickelt hatten. Männer sogar ein 2,1-fach höheres Risiko für Prostatakrebs. Doch wer fördert gezielt diese LED-Technologie, obwohl die Gesundheitsschädigungen offensichtlich sind? Und noch spannender, was sind die möglichen Ziele dieser Förderung? LED-Leuchtmittel werden von Umweltverbänden wie Greenpeace, Großkonzernen wie Philips, Politikern und Organisationen wie der EU unter anderem wegen des niedrigen Energieverbrauchs hochgelobt und mit Nachdruck beworben. Diese unheilige Allianz fördert die schnelle Abkehr von bisherigen Leuchtquellen wie der Halogenlampe und nimmt bewusst Gesundheitsschäden bei der Menschheit in Kauf. Wichtig ist natürlich auch, dass auf gesetzgeberischer Ebene Entscheide getroffen wurde, die die Glühbirne und die Halogenlampe aus unseren Läden vertrieben haben, sodass nur noch die LED-Lampe als Alternative übrig bleibt. 2009 wurde die Glühbirne in der EU verboten. Am 1. September 2018 tritt auch das Halogenlampenverbot in Kraft. Und diese Verbote werden rigoros durchgesetzt. Das Geschäft um die LED-Lampen ist ein wirklich Multimilliarden-Geschäft. Man stellt sich nur vor, dass jetzt laufend überall in allen Haushalten alte Lampen durch LED-Lampen ersetzt werden und das praktisch auf der ganzen Welt. Wenn in ein paar Jahren die Gesundheitsschäden durch LED-Lampen bekannt werden, dann hat dann auch die Pharmaindustrie etwas davon. Zudem drängt sich natürlich immer wie mehr die Frage auf, wird hier ein Krieg gegen die Menschheit geführt? Das Verrückte dabei ist, dass wie auch beim 5G-Handynetz diese ganze Entwicklung auch bei LED weltweit gleichzeitig abläuft.
The light that humans now live under is artificial blue light. All our screens, our laptops, our phones, our TVs, we're not designed to live and work under that type of light 24/7. Our cells are optimized to work with sunlight. So when you build a life around the other parts of the spectrum outside of the sun, that's when you have a problem. Blue light from native situation, meaning the sun, is always balanced by red. So it turns out, guess what runs all the regeneration programs in us? The red. So you're never designed to see blue by itself. So anytime you have blue, you've got to have red with it, and sunlight never comes with blue without red. So that's why modern technology really destroys us. Chronic blue light has been well shown in the literature to destroy melatonin. Well, we all know that when we don't sleep, we can't regenerate, but now you know the real reasons why. It's because you've subtracted the red from your life. And it turns out all the modern bulbs, specifically LEDs and fluorescents, have subtracted out the purple and the red. Why? Because they're energy efficient. That's from the power company and your wallet's perspective. We are being penny wise and pound foolish with our decisions on light. The more non-native EMF and blue light you allow in your environment, you become an obedient idiot, meaning that you can't think as well, and that's why they're not telling you about it. The tech industry knows exactly what they're doing to us. They know that they can control the way we think just by the use of blue light. Technology doesn't bring us outside, it brings us inside. Our modern society, our culture have brought us out of the sun. The answer is to change your environment. Nature knows what she's doing. There is a benefit, even on a cloudy day, to getting out in the sun. And that is the key to charging your battery that drives your life.
Blue light is a weapon. When you introduce blue light into your environment at night, it totally disrupts all of the natural processes that are supposed to be taking place at night. And all of the healing process. Blue light at night, through your eyes, sets you up for cancer. These are all a direct result of blue light exposure at night, and we've been being dosed for decades. Guess what gives off blue light? Well, the biggest source of blue light in your home is your television. But now there's another component that is equally problematic, and that is your cell phone. Did it occur to you that they chose the blue light for your phone at night intentionally? Do you know how much blue light is in the cell phone emissions? It's by design. They've banned the production and importation of incandescent light bulbs in the United States of America, and that is by design. They don't want you having access to the right light bulbs. They want you to buy these LED lights. Have you noticed the headlights on the cars? How much they hurt your eyes now, how bright they are. And what about these street lights they're putting in? You look at the lights on the streets now. They've changed. They used to be kind of orange. They used to be these high-pressure sodium lamps. They've got a bluish-white color temperature to them. It's an eerie moonlight glow. Every night you're being exposed to the equivalent of a full moon. In our living room and on the streets. At the gas station, at the restaurants, they've changed the lights everywhere. The lighting systems are a weapon. Why couldn't they use a different color? These people that run the world, that run these corporations, they are flooding the market with the weaponry. It's not just about the money. The money is a side effect. It is a windfall of carrying out the agenda. The agenda is to sicken us and to make us subservient so that they can carry out their nefarious plans for total domination and elimination of 99% of us. They've made these devices so addictive. Get rid of all your compact fluorescent lighting in your home. Get rid of it. Go back to halogens and incandescent lamps. A nice orange light.
Li-Fi uses LED lights to transfer information. So what's the real reason that they're herding us all into using LED lights instead of incandescent bulbs? Is it really to save on resources, or is there something else going on here? We're so blinded, we don't even realize when we buy all of these LED lights and we put them in our house, that through the electrical wires in our house, they can broadcast their frequencies right on top of us. The LED system acts as instant tracking devices because each light acts as a separate IP address. So they can track your movement through your own home. They can broadcast data in light waves into your brain and into your devices. So if you have LED lights in your home right now, that technology is already accessible to the people in the know. They were trying to forcibly make everybody change over from incandescent bulbs to LED. So we can be under constant surveillance and frequencies can continually be beamed on top of us. They're moving us into a wireless internet system that literally comes through our lighting system. These light frequencies, these LED frequencies, they carry information, they carry data, and it's two-way. They receive our information that we are putting out in light, which we as humans have a light signature. We have a frequency signature. Every organ in our body resonates at a different frequency. So there are agencies, this shadow government, this multinational globalist cabal control system, they have been beaming these frequencies at our brains and over our nations for a long time. At this point, there's no way for us to even know if our thoughts are our own. Why depression is so rampant, why all of a sudden has violence risen up. Are these frequencies blocking us from this great awakening that is happening?
at Kirtland Air Force Base and working in these underground compartmentalized programs, such as Sandia Labs and Los Alamos Labs, those are the entry points to these underground facilities, which are made up of millions of acres underground. And they can go anywhere from a few hundred feet to 1,000 feet down. And they're all rented out by major corporations that deal with anything from jet propulsion to biologics to anti-gravity and all sorts of crazy physics experiments. Where I was stationed at in Sandia, one floor could be as large as 5 square acres. And they host many, many different types of operating rooms for different types of things. I'd report to a fire tower, actually, and this fire tower is heavily guarded with 2 to 3 guards at each time. And they would just do a full body scan check like you would do at the airport, and that's just to get into the elevator. And the elevator takes you about 3 floors down. Then you have another security check with specialized canine units that can smell different things like viruses. They can smell cancers, viruses, all sorts of stuff. Biological agents and viral agents, they take very seriously so you do not contaminate anything when you come down to these areas. And they have to smell you, and then you go onto either a maglev tube system, or you might go down the gondola, we call it, which is a small chairlift system. It was one of the systems I was on. It's about the size of a Volkswagen truck. Holds 4 people very comfortably in some really nice seats. You can buckle in if you want, but you don't have to. It goes up to 700 miles per hour. So you might actually end up in areas where you think you're going. Because it's so classified, you might be halfway around the world in 15 minutes or an hour and not know what facility you're working at. And they actually crash land craft here so we can accelerate our technological advances. A lot of those beings are called programmed life forms. Some of those are grown clones, and we think they're real ETs. But they were actually programmed just to fly here, crash, and be captured and then dissolve away into nothing. And there are some beings that have actually volunteered to be here and be captured so they can help and work with us. And it is going on right now all over the world. A lot of the extraterrestrials that I worked on genetically were also connected to their craft and also to their devices. So not only was I taking samples from extraterrestrials, I was taking samples from devices. Because a lot of these things are organic, and some of them are infused with different types of nanotechnology. The being that I worked on had a craft that was genetically identical to the being I was working on. So it was the exact same genetic DNA. So when I got there, I was there to take samples of these crafts, and I did so, and it was pretty amazing because the hangars down there are very large. And to be underground and to see a hangar underground in a dome setting that can house about 7 jumbo jets and very active with people moving around and walking around. Something you probably would see in like Star Wars at a very active, flight line. It was pretty amazing. There's extraterrestrials that work on the base too. A lot of species do communicate through melodic sound. They actually are singing. And this is their kind of like Sanskrit that has a nice tone to it. And a lot of these advanced civilizations have this. We had a lot of good meetings with a lot of extraterrestrials from all over the place. So it's in the hundreds of thousands of extraterrestrials that I can attest to that are working with this planet. And as far as physical extraterrestrials, where you're physically seeing them, face to face, it's still in the tens of thousands. Now, all the other countries except for the United States have released all their documentation, but no one talks about it. And it's amazing documentation about UFOs and ETs. But the U.S. is standing strong, and there's not going to let that happen just yet. Because we cannot let the people know they exist. And the reason for that is if we prove ETs exist, the first thing all the universities are going to ask, well, how'd they get here? And they didn't get here from gas, coal, and oil, I can assure you that.
if you experience stress, anger, upset, annoyance, all the things that don't feel good, all those negative feelings, that's fear. When you're fearful, you have negative feelings. The way you get rid of a fear is first you have to find it. You have to become aware of it. There are things that you picked up when you were 4 years old. There are things that you pick up out of your culture. There are beliefs that come out of your heritage. So most of your fears are hidden. So it's hard to find your fear. But that's the first step. So how do we go about finding it? Well, we could look at the beliefs. Beliefs are derived from fear, but beliefs are just like the fear. They're very hard to find. Well, we're left with ego. Now there's one that's easy to spot. Ego is whenever you have a negative feeling. Why do you get angry? Why do you feel the stress? Why does something annoy you? You'll find a fear. When you find that fear, you have to own it. You have to say, yes, I am like that. I do have a fear of inadequacy or insecurity or not being lovable or, not being good enough. A fear of being taken for granted or not being appreciated. There's lots of things that frighten us. And you have to own it and say, yeah, that's me. I've got that fear. And as you do this, you will begin to realize that probably 80-90% of all your choices that you make are driven by your fear. And you'll see how it affects your life, how it's ruined relationships, how it strains and puts negativity into relationships. And that should give you the incentive to get rid of that fear. If you have this intent to get rid of it, just a serious intent, an intent you carry with you, a resolve that you have every day, and you catch yourself responding with anger, let's say as an example, every time you get that response and it starts to well up in you, you stop it, and it's not that you stuff it away. You recognize it, and you say, I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to react that way. This is not helpful. It never makes anything better. It only makes things worse. It's dysfunctional. And then let it go. And that will probably happen 100 times because it's just the way you react, and you'll continue to react that way. But you continue to catch it, continue to have that intent. I don't want to be that way. I will not react like that. That intent modifies future probability. And if you keep doing that, that fear will just dissipate. It will go away. Getting rid of the fear, once you've owned it, once you've seen how it changes your world, changes your reality, it's just a matter of intent. You have to really want to get rid of it. Okay, so the fear generates the ego. If you get rid of the fear, the ego's just gone all by itself. So as we do this, we become different people. And because we view things differently, instead of our buttons being pushed, giving all these negative reactions, we just smile because we're happy. And we deal with stuff with caring rather than dealing with negativity. Because whenever you respond with negativity, you always make the situation worse. You can't change anybody but yourself. Accept people as they are. And realize that everyone and everything is your teacher. Because everyone gives you opportunities to make choices. It's those choices you make in dealing with the stuff that happens that enables you to evolve or de-evolve the quality of your consciousness. So that's what it's all about, you see. Making those choices and making them in a caring, loving, compassionate way.